Hello and welcome to WJTS in.form. I'm your host, Bill Potter. There's a new show that's going to start on one of our sister radio stations, and that is WRZR 94.5 FM. It's called A Fool on the Hill, and with Tony Smith. And the Fool on the Hill has made it to join us here in the studio. Tony, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Well, maybe I should ask you first of all, the show is called A Fool on the Hill, but what is the premise of the show? What is it? Is it music, that kind of thing?
Yeah, primarily the show's about really good music. There's a period from roughly 1964 to 1976 that I consider to be the golden age of popular music. It was a time when music really was more to us than just music. It was kind of a fabric woven through, or a thread woven through the fabric of our lives, and it just, it's kind of like American Graffiti. Remember the movie American Graffiti? It was set with a background of high school kids with a background of music. It was playing all the time. That's kind of the way it was when we were kids. If you'll recall.
Right.
It was more than music seems to be to people today. A few years ago, my life kind of, as everyone's does, kind of went off kilter for a while, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And finally I figured out that part of it was that I no longer had music in my life. And I got back into music, and as I got back into it, I got to thinking, you know, I'd really like to put all this together. Our time as kids was a special time. I grew up on a farm outside of Lagodi, on a small family farm, and I know those exist today, but I'm not sure it's the same as it was when we were kids. And I started putting all these things together, and my way of dealing with the things that was going on around me has always been to write. And I have written literally hundreds of little sketches that I'll be incorporating in between the songs. Also, I wrote a book called Nostalgic Riddles, and I have incorporated that into the format. So.
Okay, and this book, is it available? Is it published?
Actually, it's
published. Is it a top 10, or is it one of the top
No.
10? Okay.
As a matter of fact, I have my first royalty check on the wall at home, and it was like $2.30, and beneath it I have the caption, "You too could be an author." You know, so no, it's not a huge selling book, which makes it prime for something like this. What I'll do is offer one nostalgic riddle per week, and the concept of nostalgic riddles is to not only to solve the riddle, but determine the year in which it occurred. I'll start with the Century Edition, which is one riddle from each year of the 20th century. An example would be a group of Manhattan, but not of New York, gathered to harness the beast. Many lives taken, but others were saved when the mushrooms arose in the east. And obviously that refers to
Probably the nuclear testing?
Yes, the Manhattan Project, which developed the first atomic bomb, and of course the bombs were set off over Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945. We discussed that the other day, and it turned out to be 45.
So you're going to do this riddle, but are you going to give the answer in the show somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
because that would drive me crazy if I didn't get that answer toward the end somewhere.
Yeah.
Are you an author? Is this what you've done your whole life, or is this just now you're going to be a radio personality?
Pretty much. I grew up on a farm. Okay. Played basketball for Butcher. That might be a Jack Butcher. Might be of interest to people in the area. And no, I've always written, but I'm not an author. I'm a procurement guy by profession.
Okay.
I was in procurement with the Boeing company. I offloaded sections of the 747. I worked for SAIC for a time. I worked over at Gemtron, so folks in Vincennes, you may recall me from years ago. But no, somehow I've been putting all this together for years and years and years. And if I could, I'll just go over what
Sure.
will occur.
Okay, because this Saturday will be the first show.
Absolutely.
And let me go through some of the nuts and bolts of that.
Okay.
It is on WRZR, which is a
Yes.
classic rock station, and so that's a nice
Plays
little
right
fit.
into the- yeah.
And it's 94.5 on the FM dial.
Right.
And the show's about an hour long.
Yes,
And starts at 10 o'clock and runs till about 11.
that's correct.
Okay.
And then it'll be a rebroadcast Sunday mornings at 8 in the morning.
So you can hear it twice.
Yes.
Okay. And this weekend is the first show.
It is.
Okay. And a rundown of a show.
Okay. In fact, I'll just go down through the first show.
Sure.
This program will be primarily about really good music from an earlier time, and each week I will highlight a group, and I'll choose my 8 favorite songs from that group and intersperse it with these various things that I've been talking about. This week's group is the Beatles. How could I not start with the Beatles for that time period? And after the introduction, there'll be a what I'll call it a Smith commentary to be nice, and those commentaries will be from things such as stories of my childhood growing up on a small family farm, again playing basketball for Lagodi, occasionally an anti-multi-class basketball rant, which I will enjoy thoroughly. For instance, this weekend, it will be Man, How I Loved to Hate the Hatchets. I'll also do a food moment in which I will choose a food of the week, and I won't be a food critic. I don't go to restaurants and try to rate those restaurants. I'm really probably not that sharp as far as food is concerned. But what I'll do is tell you where I think you can find the good stuff. For instance, this weekend, it's the jumbo breaded tenderloin. Now tell me where outside of the Hoosier State you can find a good jumbo breaded tenderloin. Also, I'll have an old fart movie review each week. And my theory on that is this. Your local video movie rental store, as well as Netflix, is jam-packed with old classics. Mm-hmm. I will not review recent movies. They'll have to be at least 20 years old or older. And that way, some of the younger viewers or listeners in particular can find out what is worth listening to or watching from an earlier time. For instance, this week's will be Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner. It was a good one. Mm-hmm. Also, as I've mentioned, we'll do the nostalgic riddle, and I'll do a character assassin. I'll do a character of the week. I grew up with quite a cast of characters, and I've met a lot of people through the years that it flashed through my mind at the time, that guy's really a character, or that lady. Anyway, I'll be doing one of those. And this week, it's Ed Snare, which is a guy that I grew up with. As a matter of fact, he has a son that's a financial guy here in Jasper. Yeah. I don't know if you knew him or not. But anyway, and of course, there'll be 8 songs, really good songs from an earlier time. So if you like listening to particular groups, the first week's the Beatles, the second week is the Guess Who, the third week is the Doors, and so you know what you're going to hear for that hour. And if you really want to know why I thought this was a good idea, my idol is Garrison Keillor, and he does his thing about Minnesota and Norwegian farmers. Why shouldn't somebody try to do something along that line for Southern Indiana? And that's really the concept. I certainly am not comparing myself to Garrison Keillor. The man's been doing it for 40 years. I'm hoping to get through 3 or 4 weeks here.
Right.
But that's kind of the concept. Let's have a Hoosier version of Prairie Home Companion. And,
well, I'm imagining as people listen to this, they're gonna remember some things back from their childhood that they didn't remember.
I hope so.
And then hopefully a younger set will learn some things that they weren't aware of.
Yeah. It's all about nostalgia. And my lady, Miss Lana, when I first started putting all this together, was afraid that really what I was doing was dwelling too much on the past, and really what I was doing was trying to put something together so that I could actually share the past with others. If you want to say it this way, I haven't really had great accomplishments in my life, but I've watched great accomplishments. I'm kind of a Forrest Gump of our generation. I've seen and heard things and witnessed things, as a lot of Hoosiers have, that are worth remembering. And there's nobody really doing that right now. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve, is to make the kids understand, for instance, the anti-multi-class basketball thing. People are rapidly forgetting the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to get something on record that says, this was fabulous, this was wonderful. We decided to change it, and I'm not goofy enough to think that we're ever going to go back to one-class basketball. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the IHSAA slapped my generation in the face. They truly did. And the Christian thing for me to do would be to turn the other cheek, but I'm just not made that way. And so what I intend to do is just slap them right back. Yeah. You know, it's as simple as that. I may pay for that, but we'll see.
Well, you know,
because it's all in good fun, and they know that I know nothing's going to happen as a result of it. But people should remember how things were.
Well, I think your first reading having to do with the Washington Hatchets,
Yeah.
pretty well. I went to a small school, so you know I know exactly where you're coming from.
Where did you
Forest
go?
Park.
Oh, did you?
So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
at the time, that's the way everybody
Yeah. Oh,
felt.
yeah.
That you had the big school and the small school,
Yeah.
and so it'll be really fun to listen to.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
All right. Well, is there anything we're going to reiterate when the show is?
Okay.
But somebody out there driving, should they are sitting at home, they should just tune their radio to 94.5 FM on Saturday morning.
Absolutely.
And for what reason? Just to go back?
Just to go back, just to remember.
Just to go back and have and a little whimsical fun.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what it is. It's all in fun. I'm not mean-spirited enough to actually verbally attack anyone. The character assassination thing, that was a joke. In fact, the people, you can tell by the people that I am talking about in that section. Rex Strawn, he was a hero of mine. I was a freshman, he was a senior, played basketball for Lagodi. Fouled out in the first quarter of a basketball game at South Knox with 4 minutes and 32 seconds to go in the first quarter.
Wow.
So that story is kind of, you know, it's fun to tell.
Yeah.
And I would think that it would be fun to listen to. Henry Jones was a teacher of ours. He was a tall, gaunt, bony-fingered man with the deepest voice I've ever heard, and you would be in his class and you'd say something he didn't like, and he'd point that finger at you and say, "Why, let me tell you something, young man." And so these are stories about people, not necessarily from the past, but people that I've known who I've truly, truly enjoyed and admired.
Or we've all known someone like that. You'll be able to relate. This is a show you'll be able to relate to.
Yeah, it really is.
Tony, thank you very much for coming in. Remember,
Thank you for
A Fool on the Hill. It's a new radio show with Tony Smith. Will be on our sister radio station, WRZR 94.5. It's a classic rock station. And now they've got a great little show that'll air on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. and then repeated again on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. It's about an hour long. Go back in time and reminisce. Tony, thank you for being in.
Thanks for
having me. And thank you for watching WJTS in.form. We are local people watching local people.